This is a box, a magical box, playing a magical tune. But inside this box, there lies a surprise. Do you know who's in it today? It's Councillor Richard Watts. Hello, Richard. What have you been up to today? Some timers here, Richard. He's not very happy with your Agenda 21 road closure scheme. He knows you've been bashing the residents with lots of lies in the local rag and on Twitter too. Oh dear, Richard, you're not very good at consultations, are you? Sam also says the true Islington residents want you to remove yourself before they do.
We're here now for a bit. We've let them cause a bit of traffic. Smaller the TFL camera. Your streets, we made our point now. The council are not listening to any one of you. 5,000 plus signatures on a petition, ignored. That's right, yes. They want the working class booted out. They want the la-di-da side. And I'm sorry, ain't going to happen on my watching Islington. Now, I'm wondering, it looks like we're going to be kettled shortly by the Metropolitan Police for having a peaceful protest in your borough. So, unfortunately, we have to take over this junction to put a point across about how our lives are affected. The district nurses that take too long to get to the patient so they don't get to spend quality time with them. The Meals on Wheels ladies who visit the elderly and it's probably their only person they see all day, suddenly can't stop 5 minutes to make a cup of tea because it's taken them 20 minutes to get to that house and they've got another house to go to. These are the people that have been forgotten about.
If we get tickets going through all the time, as I said, why can't they read all the M1 residents and let us go through if it's about access traffic and people that don't live here and lorries? Read our number plates and don't give us a ticket if we pay our permits and all our car fees. We live in M1, we come from London.
What a lot of people don't realise is that Islington has got the lowest rate of car ownership in the country. There's only the City of London down there where nobody lives that has a lower percentage. Only 27% of people in Islington actually have got a car in their household.
Think of the people that are cleaners and work in all the shops, and I've got a little shop round the corner, no one comes no more, they can't drive through.
Now, Richmond-on-Thames has got 76%. So if you're going to start hitting London and making sure people that can't get to their own houses, then start in Richmond-on-Thames, don't start in Islington. This is literally the last place you should be doing it.
We never got consulted. It's because they want the house rises. People around the big houses, they don't want you driving by there, they want their house prices to go up. They're not worried about the likes of Londoners that have been born and bred here. We're really upset, no one's listened to us.
This campaign has got nothing to do about the cars driven by Islington residents. What it is, it's the local councillors virtue signalling, it's the cyclist lobby, and then it's a few middle-class NIMBYs who've bought big houses and don't actually want poor people driving into their residential area. They want to turn it into a Trumpton-esque facsimile of the cultural cottages that they go back to every weekend in their Range Rovers.
The residents and the business owners are here today because the council isn't listening to them, and it's pretty reprehensible of a Labour-run council that chooses to take on board the points of view of a tiny minority but disregards the opinions of people who are actually affected by these restrictions. And the local media, instead of pushing for a proper, thorough public consultation, has decided that they are going to scaremonger and say that this has been instigated by cab drivers. That's what they should be pushing for. They should be pushing for a proper consultation and a quality impact assessment. They should sit down with local people, local businesses. They should discuss the concerns and consult properly with the frail, the elderly, those with sensory or mobility impairments. Talk to them, and actually maybe they'll end up listening to them and doing something about this.
you can see, the people are out in force again. We ain't dying down. If anything, we're getting more staunch about this matter. Yet again, they're ignoring us. We don't want to inconvenience people, but needs as must. If they can ignore us, the 5,000 petition, the continual marches.
You've no doubt noticed the sudden road closures and massive increases in bicycle lanes across the London boroughs of recent times. This has happened before, and here is what happened to the residents of the London borough of Waltham Forest. If nothing else, this serves as a sombre warning to the residents of Islington.
The aim of Mini-Hollands was to orchestrate transformational change. People need that big shock, as far as I'm concerned.
We are not against cycling or cycle lane, but we're against residential road closures.
I was one of the people that joined in the campaign to get it to Waltham Forest because I thought it would be a good thing. I think quite a bit of it is a good thing. I'm very much in favour of increasing cycling. I'm a cyclist myself. But what they've done is they've cut off access to anybody on this side of it. Whereas our main and nearest main road is Hoe Street up the top there. We now have to go down to Palmerston Road, up to Forest Road, along Forest Road, and then turn back down before we can get back to where we would have been in 2 minutes.
So the idea of modal filtering is to maybe put some closures in at certain points, but closures that cyclists can actually ride through. It's a little bit carrot and stick. So you're saying like actually it's easy to walk and cycle, you just go straight there, but drivers, if you want to drive there, one, did you really need to drive there? It can actually be easier to walk and cycle there, and if you do, then you've got this slightly more annoying route to do there.
What they've done is said, right, we're going to disadvantage motorists in the hope that cycling will respond. And it remains to be seen whether it will, and I think it's unfair. And people around here are really angry about it.
We live on a main, what was a main cut-through road between Lea Bridge Road and Hoe Street, and so our road is quieter now, which is nice. We have a young daughter, but it's simply diverted the traffic from our road down onto the main roads, and walking along the main road is now really unpleasant.
There should have been more attention paid to the consultation process. It should have been published, it should be completely transparent, and I think that there was a way to implement it safely in order to minimise the interference caused to residents, but it wasn't done in the right way.
It hasn't been a serious attempt to find out whether people actually want this. Is this a good idea? Everything's described as an improvement, and the final questions lump together: would you like more trees? Would you like a lick of paint on the bridges? Oh, by the way, do you want the streets closed?
Do you think it's rubbish? Because as the local residents ask for it, well, it's a waste. I mean, we drive buses and going up and down, and the hassle it costs, especially when you've got emergency vehicle going along. Yeah. We've got to get out of the way, we've got to get on the curb and all that, and it's rubbish.
I think they fast-tracked it without a fault for the buses or the infrastructure of the borough. Yeah. And that's why we're having issues now, and it's only going to get worse.
Mini-Holland is actually affecting our business very badly at the moment. We used to have, before this Mini-Holland, about 37-38 drivers. Really? Reduced it down to 20 drivers now.
Basically stopping all of our residents from moving easily through our home areas and the roads around. Parents, have to manage their days differently now. So the movement and how much time you have as a family has been restricted.
The council came to our office and they said, what would you think if Orford Road was pedestrianised? And we said, well, it could be okay. But they said nothing about buses using the road, and they said nothing about road closures. So some of us organised a meeting at the Asian Centre, which was nearly filled to capacity, and then from there we gradually formed into a more cohesive group.
They're trying to help businesses as well, so we work as a team. At least there's people that understand everyone's situation.
I can't run a business without a car because I'm moving large pieces of furniture. And to be told by Mini-Holland that I'm no longer allowed to deliver to the front of my shop, which I've been doing for the past 24 years, doesn't seem very community spirited. I have had customers saying they won't come back to me because it's too difficult to get here.
In my 10 years living in Walthamstow village, I have had to call out the fire brigade only once, and likewise the ambulance service. The ambulance wished me off double quick with a suspected heart attack to Whips Cross A&E, shortcutting through the village back streets. If next time is the real thing, I don't fancy my chances.
On the ambulance service in particular, actually it's not necessarily the ambulance that you need to get to someone who's in distress, it's a paramedic. And actually in London you're increasingly seeing paramedics on motorbikes. Fire engines, well, you know, it happens already, they smash through obstructions. There is a reason why fire engines are built like they are. You know, they can go through any of our modal filters in an emergency. They'll go up one-way streets or the wrong way if they're required to do so. So all of those things are dealt with.
Initially they said that it may be a possibility that it didn't work and that they would have to revert back to the whole system. But when questioned, there was no money set aside for that possibility.
No, there's no reason to do that. There's no reason to put in place a contingency to take anything out or to change anything.
I see this myself as a breakdown of local democracy, and I don't think I'm the only person who's worried by that.
Mini-Holland has dominated my post bag for nearly 18 months now. I'm the Member of Parliament, so I don't have any influence over the scheme itself. It's run by the Council on behalf of Transport for London and the London Mayor. So my role is to act as an advocate. These schemes will only work with the consent of the local community.
I would bring in the ultra-low emission zone, tomorrow, and the charges that will then come on diesel vehicles tomorrow.
The reality of it is shutting down a few quiet roads will not save the world. Forcing car manufacturers to produce clean cars will.
They encouraged us all to buy cars and now they want to sort of destroy us.
What exactly are these Mini-Holland bike schemes? What is sustainable development? And just what is the United Nations Agenda 21 all about?
The United Nations Agenda 21, also known as Sustainable Development, the bigger picture of the smart green genocide, what this means in your local area. With the announcement of Mini-Holland areas being introduced and having seen this in action, we're going to look into what the bigger picture behind the fake green agenda really is. In what is now known as your community and under the banner of the big society, change agents are implementing social change. They will not tell you directly what that change is. The reason for this is that they are implementing change that no one would want. This change is loss of all individual rights over collective consensus, which means everyone agrees as they have no choice. All this is under a fake green agenda known as Agenda 21, or to give it its nice fluffy fake green name, Sustainable Development. This is being implemented by all UK councils. Now, there's a government document in the article which describes how it will be implemented by force or by consensus, which means obviously that we don't agree, we are made to agree. Here's a quote from the document. The impact of reductions will be one of anger, the degree of which is yet to be realised. As the reality of reduced services hit, people will rise to action. The key to big society succeeding is to galvanise this energy. This means trained community organisers, stakeholders and chosen groups will implement the loss of all rights. They're already in place and they're doing this in your local community. This article will expose how to spot these subversives. So let's remember that Agenda 21 is a worldwide programme implemented by the United Nations. This is where the change agents, aka community organisers or social entrepreneurs, come in. These groups are filtering down through the Tavistock Institute and its social policy organisations. Okay, we're number 30 Tabernacle Street, EC2A, London. And this is the head of the British Psychological Society, the Tavistock Institute, Academy of Social Sciences and the Political Studies Association of the United Kingdom. Now all of these associations are driving policy. It's very interesting that we've got the British Psychological Society at the top there. They now seem to have all come under one umbrella. So these are basically institutions that are driving social change and social policy. In other words, how things are filtering down into the public. What we're doing here is we're looking at the way that limited choices are given, and those choices are then acted out by change agents within society. So basically driving social policy has been going on a long time, but it is a science now. For instance, when we were at Occupy, which was actually taken down by change agents very quickly, Occupy St Paul's a few years ago, the Tavistock Institute were doing social dreaming experiments there. Now social dreaming is a way of telling people what their aspirations really are, but it's also analysing the psychology of what's going on in people's minds. So they're creating the psychology and they're bringing it down through these organisations, a number of which we're going to look at later. Some are funded by the United Nations and are coming through local authorities. So basically this implementation of change is quite easy to follow, but what they're not telling you is what the change is. Now the change is the big society. So these institutions are very big on programming, social policy. They have several think tanks that link under this to the government, and these are driving this thing called social change. So really what we're looking at is the implementation of a communitarian, which actually really is communism. Sometimes it doesn't trip off the tongue, but the communitarian agenda of the British government, and indeed the European Union, is where these social changes are being implemented through organisations such as this. So you've got the British Psychological Society, the Tavistock Institute, the Academy of Social Sciences, Political Studies Association of the United Kingdom. Now, we did a show recently where we actually phoned up the Tavistock Institute to ask them about their social dreaming experiment, and they actually denied that they'd participated or instigated any form of social dreaming. Now it was still on their website and they had the screen capture, so either these people don't know what they're doing or they deny a lot of what's happening. So that's it. Here we are, the centre of global mind control, and here's the policy that's driving it. We're outside a place called Unlimited in Whitecross Street in London, EC1, and we're just down the road from the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, and this place ties in very much with that, because what they're doing here is creating social entrepreneurs. It all looks very innocent on the outside, but what they're doing is they're programming their own facilitators to go into communities to implement the change that we've been talking about, which is the communitarian big agenda, the big society. We've just been talking to two ladies down here who are having agitators put into places where they're living, and these people are the same people, the facilitators, who are going to be implementing this social change. So they're actually creating a divide and rule society. They're targeting people who they want to agitate, and then they're coming in with a solution. So basically the Agenda 21 big society is all about total surveillance and control of minds, and it's worth looking into this organisation Unlimited. There's another one called Locality, who are again putting facilitators into your local community, and this is happening all over Britain. 10,000 have just been trained to go in. They're doing it through the local authorities and the United Nations. So this big society is using what's called Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, which is basically nothing's off the charts. It's worth looking at that, because these professional facilitators and agitators are using deviant tactics to subvert what decent people would call society. So Unlimited are training a certain amount of social entrepreneurs, but what sort of social entrepreneurs are they actually training, and what is a social entrepreneur? I would call a social entrepreneur someone who set us a small business and employed local people. I don't think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about creating a network which filters down into Sustainable Development Agenda 21. So people are being programmed into that agenda. So when they're saying social entrepreneurs, we have to actually question what they mean by a social entrepreneur. On the outside it looks very fluffy, but when you do your research and your homework, you've got Unlimited, Regenerate and Locality are using subversive techniques to create the big society. TheBigSociety.org in this country, Unlimited and Locality can be found on the internet. And the third sector, which is what these groups are part of, are also stating in their own documentation that in order to bring communities together, there is often a need for a common enemy. And we're finding more and more people are becoming the common enemy. So look into the big society, communitarian agenda, and how it's affecting your local community, because this is a worldwide program.